And with that, we are live. How is everybody doing today? It is, well, it was supposed to be Tuesday, but apparently both me and Ocean are bad at the whole life and also work thing.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's hard.
yeah, it's
very
incredible.
difficult.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It makes me incredibly depressed to know that life and work have to coexist in the same space. Oh, you're right.
You have a hammer now,
I do.
which is it's bigger than mine.
It always has been.
I'm sad about. Ooh,
Always has been.
no. So,
So, how are you doing today, Ocean?
I'm all right. I woke up a little while ago. I wound up on a research hole last night that like just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper, such to the point where I was looking for. I'm desperately trying to find volume 23 of the 1929 Encyclopedia Britannica, such that I found the Internet Archive's version of it as uploaded by apparently the Public Library of India, but it switches letters before and goes to a previous upload of a different volume.
Oh, it's just a redirect link right now.
No, it's not a redirect. It's like you're going through the PDF and you're going through the pages and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm about to find the article I want to, and then suddenly it goes from V or whatever letter that it starts with and goes straight to R. And I'm like,
Crucial data is missing.
it shouldn't do this. But it's like the next page number, but it goes to R. And I keep going and I'm like, this is somebody just started uploading pages from a different volume, but they had the page numbers right, but they had the book wrong.
Great.
So it just switches.
So you may have to actually go onto Amazon and find the physical volume.
Really don't want to do that, but I might have to.
Oh boy.
So
You may have to do what freaking I forget what the topic was, but there was a thing CGP Grey had to go through where he was researching something and just like every single time he hit the dead end, he said, "Okay, I'm putting it to bed."
people are saying my volume is low.
Your volume is low.
I just turned mine up. I don't know.
You
if
should
that's
be good now.
Okay.
You should be good now. But every single time he would hit that wall, you just go, "Okay, it's done." For me to figure this out, I would have to go through so many loopholes. It's not worth it. And then a week later, he'd be like in fucking Europe, just he just had traveled to a different country and just went. I couldn't sleep on it. I couldn't. I'm here now.
No, that's where I'm at with this, where there is apparently an entry in the Encyclopedia Britannica that is so controversial and was published in the Encyclopedia Britannica for so long that it affected the way people thought about things for decades. And until it was finally debunked, and it's still one of those like recurring bits of fake lore in our society, and I can't find the actual. I've seen a lot of writing about it, but I cannot find the entry itself, which is what I want, because I want to see what it said.
You want to see the source, not the stories about it.
Right, exactly.
You want to go to the Jedi Temple
about it, exactly. I want to go to the Jedi Temple, pull the fucking dusty ass books off the shelf, and
Doesn't
see what
matter
exactly
that Han Solo told you that the Jedi are real and all of it's real. You want to be at the location.
I want to go
the
there.
books.
Right. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, all the books have been relocated to a single tree, and that got burned up in the 8th movie.
That's so sad. That reminds me of my religion. Stop.
Page turners, they were not. So, all right. How is everybody doing today? It is Wednesday, Woden's Day. It is hammered out time. It was asked in the chat where the fundraiser is sitting right now. Currently, that is sitting at 2,100 of the goal. Of course, that is not the money that is sitting in that account, particularly because some of that has had to be used for getting new insurance and getting warranty and all that. Basically, going towards the repair cost bit by bit as we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, like getting
Kinda like
getting
how it
the
goes.
mini, like the first the first things are going to be getting those which I've already gotten, and then the next chunk when there's 2,000 available in the pool, that's going to go towards getting a plumber out here to stop the leaking, so that we can actually just go, okay, now that the problem can't get any worse.
What do you do now?
Yeah, now we can focus on planning to get things. So that's the plan there. I don't want to just sit there and just be like, okay, we finally, like next year, okay, we hit the $20,000 goal. It's time to start, and like my house is just going. You waited too long. So,
Cirrus's house is about to become a slip and slide, y'all.
It's funny.
The funny part about that joke is the weight of the reality of it.
Yeah, we already live on a hill, so when things start going this way, momentum just says,
it's gonna keep going.
Are you sure you want to continue? Click.
You're gonna see Cirrus on some like very house-sized skis.
Just wee. All right. So, link to the donation pool. Sure, I can drop that in real quick here. Also, if you have not subscribed to Ocean already, go over to his channel and do so, because that is the only way to guilt him into making more fucking content.
It is. It's actually effective. I'm sitting here working on like 4 or 5 scripts at the moment. That's what the research hole that I was going down last night is all about. I have found a lot of controversial things, and I've been poring over some Old Norse sources to make some heathen-related content as well. So,
Norse source. Say it 15 times fast.
Norse source, Norse source, Norse source. I'm a heathen. I have to do that all the time. So, but I have like a pile of them sitting here right next to me, and I'm going to be having fun here with the next few videos, going into some heathen-related things.
Awesome. So, the title of this video is that, yes, voter fraud has been found, technically. Asterisk.
No, that's not what it was.
Oh.
There was, it's not, so you're talking about the votes that were found, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that and the other thing.
The other thing.
The Lindsey Graham thing.
Oh, that
is fraud.
Has been found.
That is fraud. That is 100%.
Do we want to
fraud.
talk about that first, or do we want to talk about? Let's talk about the votes that were found first.
Let's talk about the votes that were found first. So this is a Georgia thing. There's a reason the thumbnail for here is just like fraud found in Georgia, because in Georgia,
spoilers. Cirrus and I are both in Georgia.
This is where we live.
This is our thing.
So the Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, that's a mouthful of a name, said that 3,000 ballots were actually found in Floyd County, and there are even more ballots that are also in Fayette County. So we've got around 5,000 ballots in total that have been found.
A little bit more. But
and
it looks like it's netted Trump, I want to say, around 1,200 votes.
Yeah, it was like 800 for one and 400 something in another area. So, but the thing is that it's still not enough votes to turn Georgia red again.
Yeah, Biden has
best
a lead
start believing in blue states, Georgians. You're in one.
So Biden's lead is around 14,000 votes, and it's when you add in new votes that were found by the audit, because so what happened was. I'll explain a little bit of Georgia law coming up into this. Georgia is such that if the election is close, is by like less than equal to or less than 0.5% of a difference, then there's a couple of things that wind up happening. You can call an audit on the votes in where the Secretary of State or the Georgia officials choose one of the elections to audit, where they actually go through and check a sampling of the votes to make sure that they're legal, and then they use that to spot check the election, basically. And if the election is less than 0.5% difference as well, the opponent that lost has the opportunity to call a recount if they want to really recount the votes and make sure that the tally is correct. And no opponent in their right fucking mind is going to say no to that. So they just they do that. So of course the Trump administration called for a recount,
and historically,
as is their right in law.
Historically, when that happens, usually it only changes things by like double digits.
Right. Well, it can go into the third digit, but that's very rare. Now, what looks like is going to happen is that it's going to change by 4 digits because they found new votes. But they found new votes not because of the recount. They found new votes because of the audit. So what happened was Secretary of State decided to say, we're going to audit the presidential election. And I think that might have been the governor's decision, actually. But because I saw an interview from the lieutenant governor about it where he was justifying the decision, basically. And they said their claim, I don't know if this is how real this is, but their claim was, look, in order for us to spot check this election, we're going to have to take a sampling of 1 million votes. So we just decided to do the whole thing. Now, another thing that they said was like, look, Georgians, there are many Georgians that are skeptical of this. People are calling for the Secretary of State to step down, including David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, the Senate candidates for the runoff election coming up. So
running off is a lot of what David Perdue is doing.
Ooh, we'll get into that.
Sorry, I had to.
But so they're calling for that, the resignation of the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State is getting more and more into this mode. So, let's spot check the presidential election. And by spot check, we mean audit the entire fucking thing. And this is the way that they see to reassure voters as much as possible that they did the audit, they did their due diligence, a Republican authority went through this election, and here are the results. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not we would be excited for and accept a flipping of the election under these circumstances, because that would be wild if we found evidence of mass voter fraud. But at least we'd be able to look at it at that point because an audit was done. But now Republican authorities are going through it and they're saying there is no evidence of any sort of widespread fraud. There is, however, evidence of human error and essentially malpractice in that over 5,000 votes just simply weren't uploaded from 2 counties.
Yep.
And that has netted Trump 1,200 or so votes in the recount, which is wild. That's a huge difference.
Massive win. Massive.
But not enough to actually win.
Quite frankly, we won this election. We won it. On opposite day.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
That's but practically this is, so what does this mean? Like on one hand, this technically means that nothing has changed, right? Functionally nothing has changed, but not really, because here's the actual implications of this going forward. The implications of this are that it has now casted even more doubt into the efficacy of the election.
I don't think so.
I think it does, because here's the thing. While technically, the internal structure of the election was built in such a way that it was able to audit itself and self-correct, right? That should be a sign that things are good. That should be a sign that things are operating as they should. But it is the fact that they found something at all,
right,
that your MAGA type people are going to latch onto and go, you see, fraud. And here's why. And this is, maybe if I word this in a way that you've seen an example of before, you'll understand. How many times have you heard a young earth creationist, of which many people in the MAGA pat area are? How many young earth creationists have you heard that have used the logic that there has been fraud in science to distrust all of science, regardless of the fact that the scientific method had built into its structure self-correcting mechanisms that found that fraud and fixed it and self-corrected. That part didn't matter.
Right.
And it never has.
Here's the thing, is that the conspiracy theory as of now is strong enough such that I think that finding this and correcting it is going to do better for efficacy of election and trust in elections long term than
long term. Yes,
we wouldn't find anything. Now, here's my reason: if they didn't find anything, it would just be, oh, the Georgia establishment Republicans, even though Kemp is a Trump sycophant, but that's beside the point, that the Republican establishment in Georgia is kowtowing to the Democrat media something Q post, right?
Yeah.
But instead, that narrative cannot be used. That narrative is kind of combated by the fact that
they found more Trump votes.
They found more Trump votes. It would have been hilarious if they found more Biden votes, but instead, they found Trump votes.
The finding more Biden votes. That technically, there's a thing we have to talk about with that, but that'll be after a quick point. I think in the short term, basically, as long as Trump is alive, is my in the short term. As long as
that's a long short term.
That is a long with his diet. Are you sure? His diet looks like mine, and I don't expect to live past 60.
Yeah, I'm not hedging bets, but I'm presuming that it's going to be longer than like 2 years or whatever the fuck.
Well, yeah, my short term is like the next couple election cycles. That's my short term.
Sure.
Right. The reason that I have that is that as long as people have Trump to rally around, and as long as he doesn't shut his goddamn mouth, which we know he's not going to, as long as that is the case, and that's the reality that we live in, the mere fact that votes were found, well, if I'm going to say something that, again, you've heard before.
Right.
Well, if they found those, what's to say there weren't others?
So here's the thing with that. Probabilistically, if they were going to be looking through, and this is not the thing, but this is kind of my expansion on that.
Yeah.
There are more counties in Georgia that are conservative than there are counties that lean left.
Yep.
Now, as a result, that means that probabilistically, if you're going to find a county that fucked up, it is more likely than not going to be a conservative county just by the sheer number of conservative counties.
Yeah.
So, the fact that they found 2 areas where there was a clinical error in fucking up and just uploading votes, that was the issue, is that there was a stack of votes that were not uploaded. Files were not added to the official count.
Yep.
They were counted by the machines, but the file that was produced by the count was not added to the final tally. This happened twice in 2 different counties and was found in the audit, and the people responsible have been fired, or not fired, but asked to resign by the Republican establishment of Georgia.
With $50,000 fines sitting there, but that doesn't really...
That's about Fulton, which is a different issue.
Yeah.
Fulton County, a left.
Oh, yeah, that was the pipe bursting thing.
There was a pipe burst issue, and there was another issue about dismissing people when they shouldn't have been dismissed, and then continuing counting. But, I think that got described as money switching from one hand to another with respect to that fine. It's like, okay, you fined the county by the state, so now the county money goes from one pocket.
The county pulls from the county moves from its treasury to the state's treasury, which will then be used to pay the county.
And subsequently nobody is punished.
Yeah, no, it's a de facto, or it's a de jure fine, but de facto nothing really has happened.
Right.
But the reason that I hold this though, and I'm still gonna stand on this. Congratulations, guys! You get to see me and Ocean disagree with one another on Hammered Out. This doesn't happen.
Yeah, this is gonna slowly turn into a sort of debate. Because I have a rather different view about how this affects things than Cyrus does, and I'm right. But we'll let Cyrus talk.
Whereas I believe that I'm right, and I'm willing to admit that it's a belief.
You are free to believe that,
as opposed to claiming knowledge. Which is what Ocean is doing.
I know, because it has been revealed to me in such a way that it cannot be wrong.
Okay. So now
you are not able to speak rationally without assuming that I'm correct.
Okay, so you're putting the cart before the horse, And
I'm putting the cart several miles in front of the horse. With
yeah,
a big
you're literally taking the stance that you realize that revelation to you is just hearsay to me and literally everybody else, right?
No.
Okay, if that's the debate style we go with, just no.
Anyway, whatever the case.
Wrong.
So, my case in point is that I think that the discovery of these votes will do more ultimately to confirm that this election was done properly.
Ultimately,
and it will give
yes.
strength to general media to be
But
able to make the case that this was done, and it will convince more people ultimately. However, where I agree with you is that it won't affect the entrenched people.
Correct.
Right? But I think the entrenched people will be smaller in number as a result of this.
The entrenched people also only so here's the other thing with the entrenched people. This is the reason why I'm tying this to Trump's lifespan.
Sure.
The entrenched people are only going to be as entrenched so long as Trump can speak, because while Trump so far seems to be trying to go like for a Ronald Reagan type of legacy, where even though he's done so much goddamn stupid shit, everybody looks at him and just like, yeah, I remember the Reagan days. Do you remember them? Do you remember those days?
I remember the Trump days when I was hunkered down for a year.
So is he, to be fair. He is the bunker bitch president.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, he's the only president that I've like heard of going into the bunker. I wouldn't be surprised if it's been used several times. But
well, when you've got tiny hands,
if it's gone into the news cycle as much as his
usually what happens whenever there's a threat of some kind, the president goes on to Air Force One, because Air Force One is much safer than just hunkering down in the White House bunker. But that's not what happened with Trump.
But jumping into Air Force One has more of a commanding presence than the bunker does. But I don't know. I'm sure the bunker's been used several times,
just not.
But
not in public notion.
Anyway, sidebar.
Yeah,
let's go back to the voter, because there's so much more to cover on the voter thing.
Well, my point on the Trump thing that I was trying to get to was that I will dump oil on you. I will deep fry you like one of my chicken tenders, and believe me, nobody will know the difference. My point where Trump is concerned is that it seems like he's been trying to go for a Ronald Reagan legacy, and elected officials, especially here in Georgia, believe it. There's even a sign, just, I'm not going to say how far from my house because that would dox me if somebody lives near here, but there's a sign here with one of our elected officials who's campaigning, and it literally reads, "Inspired by Reagan, energized by Trump." And that whole legacy just seems to be this chat just wants to see me covered in oil. That whole legacy just seems to be a standard thing that he's going for. Like, and I mean, granted, his campaign ran on "Make America Great Again," which is a re-signal of Reagan's "Make America Great." Like, the whole thing has been, let's echo the Reagan years. But I think the thing with Reagan was a lot better at smoke screening what he did, and the media was not anywhere. We didn't have as much independent media just blasting. It didn't have the ability to blasting Reagan during his time when he would say one thing on TV, and of course he was an actor beforehand, so saying something convincingly on TV is pretty easy for him. He'd be able to do that, get public opinion to sway in his favor, but then when you look at Trump, he's only able to do that so much for his radicals. And I think his radical base is going to be tied almost to his lifespan, because once he's not able to speak anymore, once he's not able to say all the shit that he's been saying that makes them go hoo-ha, 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 once he's not able to do that for whatever reason, that's gonna take some of that away. It's like being part of a cult. When your cult leader stops being able to speak, when you stop having influence from the cult, you stop having that reinforcement. I think a lot of that's going to happen with Trump. I think during his lifetime, the fact that anything has been found during this is going to be a point in favor for them in their minds. once Trump is no longer screaming in their ears, proverbially, I believe that may shift then, but not until that point.
So you're talking about like after the him leaving?
No.
Or-
Because Trump's not going to shut up after he leaves.
Right. No, of course. That's where I'm at.
I'm saying they're going to do the whole Trump is still my president thing, even after he's out of office until he's dead. That's my prediction. And if I were to point to something that has already done this, I can just point to the Catholics and the Sedevacantists, if you're familiar with them.
Mm-hmm.
They believe, the Sedevacantists, for anybody who doesn't know, believe that there has not been a legitimate pope since the 30s. that the last pope in the 30s was the legitimate pope, and everyone after that has just been like a fucking satanic plant.
Didn't that end with John Paul II or somebody? Or
I'd have to check.
Anyway, whatever.
But the point is, I'm not pulling this mentality out of my ass. I can point
I understand
I can
that.
point to people who have it.
I'm just saying that is going to become a smaller and smaller number as people give up on that crap. And because I think that after a year of Biden's presidency, you're gonna find. I'm not saying it's gonna go away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that but I think that the Trump is still my president character is going to be a similar sort of character as the flat earther. There's too many of them, but they're not a huge number. You know what I mean?
Like, there's enough to be concerned, but not enough to where they can procreate.
Right. Well, I mean, whatever. Anyway, so there's
expand better. Now it's a penis joke.
Anywho, now let's get into kind of like the second. There's two more kind of, or maybe three more parts of this story that are kind of coming together now. So the recount, several counties are done recounting. They've sent back their results of the recount and audit because they did both.
Mm-hmm.
And they're reporting that the differences between their count, their hand recount, and the machine count that they did on the night of this and the week following, the difference between that and the verification is between 10 and 0 for most counties. So with the exception of counties that found over 2,000 votes that they didn't upload.
Yeah, which means that there literally was just a singular error that caused it, but it wasn't a counting error that was the issue, which is why the hand count is not replacing the
That's another
count.
thing to talk about, because there is a little bit of controversy that the recount is not replacing is not the count that is going into certification. The certification is going to be on the original count plus the votes that were found. So they're going to take the votes that were found and add them into the original numbers, and that will be the final count that will be certified as the Georgia election, or is to be certified. It remains to be seen whether or not they'll do that, but it is predictable that it will happen. There doesn't seem to be anything stopping that from happening right now. So the Secretary of State will basically be announcing official results, and that will be the formula for it. Now, why is the recount not being the thing that replaces the original count? Well, because that's a hand check.
Because there's no guarantee that the hand check is better.
Right. It's just as likely that human error happened in the recount as it did in the original count. But the original count, because the recount didn't change the results significantly, such to the point where you have a difference of thousands of votes, because again, we're not counting those votes that just weren't uploaded. We're adding those in, right? So that discrepancy is going to get reconciled. So you look at what was recounted and audited. Did that change anything? No. Okay, so you don't need to replace the old numbers with those numbers. You just add in these things that were discovered in the audit. And that will be the certified results of the state of Georgia, which will put Biden ahead by about 13,000 votes. Or maybe a little bit less, might be 12.5 or something like that. But it's still going to be a Biden victory. Georgia will go blue at the end of the day. Now, the next part of this is where it gets funny. The Secretary of State of Georgia recently has released that there have been Republican officials, plural, including Lindsey Graham, who have said to him that he needs to find ways to eliminate mail-in ballots on the basis of signature. Now, it wasn't explicitly stated that he needed to do that. Apparently, what Lindsey Graham said is suggested the method of doing signature comparisons. And there's a lot of problems with that method. But if you have a mail-in ballot that comes in and there's a signature on it, and you want to take that signature, the process that was suggested by Lindsey Graham is taking that signature and comparing it to the signatures that are on file. Georgia has a photo ID requirement. So you have the photo ID that's on record that contains a signature. It's usually a driver's license. So you compare the signature on the mail-in ballot with the signature on the driver's license. And if they don't match, then the process would be eliminate that vote from the roll, which is a ridiculous system for a number of reasons. First, people change their driver's license every few years or so, and people's signatures evolve over that period of time. So they're taking a sample size of one of your signature and comparing it with the other sample size of one that's sitting on your mail-in ballot. And if it's significantly different, which could be any amount, they're going to expunge that from the roll.
You could be somebody like me who has an inconsistent signature on the best of days because.
From like 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, right? Do you want to
know when when I created my signature? The first time that I sat down for an orientation at McDonald's, when I got my first job there and I had to sign a bunch of documents, it was the first time I'd ever had to sign a bunch of documents in my life. So it was at that time that I created my signature.
Right.
And I don't know what the fuck that signature was, but it's most certainly not the one I use now.
Right. So my signature will usually look similar, but I know it changes because I've seen it change. But I can make a scribble that is recognizable as the same thing. But a more when you get into signature comparisons, you're usually talking about like a bank looking at a check or something like that. It's been signed by seemingly somebody other than you. And they call you about it and they send you a picture of the check.
Signed by a real service.
And they're like, did you do this? Is this you? But they're saying don't do that process, right? There's just if it's significantly different, expunge it. And there's serious issues with that. Serious issues with that.
I'm just going to play an audio real quick for the audience. If I can get it to play quick enough, this is basically what they're expecting each and every single time. Hold on.
I'm unsure of what you're looking at. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so you can actually hear it now. Here we go.
So far,
they're
so good.
expecting this.
Hey, that's
that blue hedgehog again, of all places.
I found you. Faker.
They're expecting that right there. They're expecting to look at a fucking ballot. I found you, faker. Every single time. But that's...
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
Oh, my God. Why?
I had to.
Do I do this show with you?
Because it brings you joy and you laugh more when we're on show together.
Does it? Does it?
Are you a masochist? Do you want to honestly answer that live on air?
No, I'm not going to answer that live on air.
Okay. So we know the answer is yes. And therefore all the pain is actually joy. That's
a valid argument. All right.
There you go.
So because you need to reinsert the hedgehog ocean. What?
I sent you I thought I sent you that picture on WhatsApp.
Hold on a second. Now I got to open up WhatsApp.
I sent that picture to you a while ago.
Oh no. Oh, that picture. Reinsert the hedgehog.
SWATbot, reinsert the hedgehog.
You've been sending me a lot of Dr. Robotnik, and I've just been ignoring you. All right. So
Speaker's getting crazy. Hold on, let me fix that.
What in the world happened to you? That didn't work.
It should be working now.
There you go. That's up.
I had to.
That was shocking and confusing for me, and I'm not sure if I'm okay with it. And I'm now going to be confused for the remainder of the day because of that.
Fair. We got about 40 minutes. We got about 40 minutes left in the show. So you mentioned.
Well, there's still a lot more to get into. I think.
Oh, I know. I'm looking at notes real quick. So we know that like right now, Lindsey Graham is the person being accused of asking for the
and he has denied it.
The exact signature matching.
He's denied it.
But I think because of a video that I did earlier on my channel, everybody here should already know it doesn't matter if he denied it. It doesn't matter. And the reason why? If you don't believe the accusations against Lindsey Graham, that's fine. It functionally doesn't matter because Trump has already publicly requested this. He even said that
the signature compare. Okay, so let's clarify what the misconception is, because the misconception is, whether or not you can use the letter of the law to expunge votes. Now, if the thing about it that would make it fraud would be to target a subsection of the votes that were mail-in ballots, which are proportionately far more in favor of Biden than Trump, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to fix the election, you want to target that body of votes and find everything wrong with them that you can and micromanage the letter of the law with respect to those votes in a way that you wouldn't otherwise, so that you can change the outcome. And this is the dishonest part. And this is the reason why the Secretary of State of Georgia is not interested in playing this game. He's, as I said earlier in the show, the Secretary of State is increasingly getting like this. Now, if that conversation happened under normal circumstances, would the Republican Secretary of State start setting fires about it? Probably not.
Normally
Weirdly
not.
enough.
Normally they tend to toe party line.
So why is he doing this? He has been asked to resign. He has been maligned by the President of the United States. He has been one of the people that asked him to resign were the two sitting senators that are going into runoff elections that he will be overseeing. There is a ton of Republican personalities that, in order to kowtow to the president's toxic base, are going after the enforcement of a free and fair election publicly.
And he's also, it was mentioned in the chat real quick, he's probably gotten death threats from weird MAGA people. No. He has gotten them. He has gone live on TV to say, no, I've gotten death threats. Like right now, his wife has COVID. He's not, at the time of that recording, he had not contracted it yet.
But as of 2 days, he doesn't have it.
But he's been getting those death threats. That has
on his
been
wife's
happening.
phone. On his wife's phone. And he says that they've been increasing the graphic. So he's getting death threats from people. He's been asked to resign by the sitting senators of Georgia. He's been attacked by the President of the United States. There's a long laundry list of things that are going after this guy. And he early on was like, my opinion is, I'm a Republican. I wanted Trump to win. I'm a little upset by the results, but I'm going to be enforcing a free and fair election. Now, my perspective is, again, as the Secretary of State of Georgia saying this, my perspective as a Republican is that we should be united going forward, but we seem to be taking a strategy of division.
Because there are people who are going, what's best for the Republican Party? And then there are people who are going, what's best for God Emperor Trump?
Right. And what seems to be best for the Republican Party at this point is to throw the Secretary of State of Georgia, who was appointed by a Trump-friendly governor, under the bus because the state went blue in a free and fair election. And he's not willing to play voter fraud games in order to save his own reputation among people that are playing conspiracy theories. So again, he is increasingly getting like this and saying, no, I'm going to be doing a free and fair election. Go screw yourself. And I like this guy. He's a Republican. I'm sure I disagree with him on a number of policy issues. But when it comes to being the Secretary of State and holding a free and fair election, the guy's done a good job. Like in the Georgia election, we didn't see like the massive stories of voter suppression like we did in 2018. We saw, people were like, I went to vote. There wasn't a wait at all. Necessarily, it was I live in a majority black area.
It took me only about an hour to get my vote through.
I voted quicker than you, and I'm in an area that has previously experienced voter suppression.
Yeah, I voted.
So,
I voted on the day of.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up still going through with the plan of just voting the day of, and I did it early morning, basically as soon as the polls opened, and it took me about between 30 minutes and an hour or so. Not that bad, though I still would have liked that to have been a little quicker given that it was fucking cold.
Right. There were weird things about drop-off locations, at least in the area where I was a poll worker. See, if you want to talk about was there funny business in Georgia, sure, there was probably funny business fucking everywhere. Pennsylvania was in the news constantly.
Yeah,
right?
the issue though is that, and so is California for fake drop-off locations and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The issue comes down to fraud is a legal term, and
what we're talking about is voter suppression right now.
Okay,
Like, was there voter suppression in Georgia? Not on a large scale, not like 2018. Were there games by local parties? There always are, but it wasn't to this scale that it was when Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State and running for governor at the same time against Stacey Abrams. This Secretary of State has made voter accessibility extremely easy and has held a free and fair election, but it happened to be that at this point a traditionally red state went blue on the presidential election. But both senators, Republican senators, won their elections if you look at it before runoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So or actually I think that Loeffler's numbers might have been lower than her Democrat opponent, but all the numbers were below 50%, so they have to go into a runoff. And Purdue and Ossoff had to go into a runoff as well, but Purdue had more votes than Ossoff did. So, but Biden had more votes than Trump in Georgia. So free and fair election, that's what happened. And it's weird.
It's no different than what happened in Maine, where Maine went blue on presidential, but it went red when you look at its Senate. Right.
Susan Collins, the great grandstander of uncertainty, managed to pull out a win. That surprises me. I thought her goose was cooked, but
nah, it's
but anyway,
turkey season, not geese season, so she's fine.
This Secretary of State is not willing to be thrown under the bus, and I don't think that Kemp is willing to throw him under the bus either. So, Kemp's favorability is dropping, though, with this, because there's people that are mad at him for not basically firing the Secretary of State. But Kemp, for all the criticisms that I have of Kemp, which is our Republican governor, who is a bit of a Trump sycophant,
and
is standing by this.
And has engaged in voter suppression himself.
Correct.
For like a decade.
He's not willing to play this game of throwing his Secretary of State under the bus. At least not currently, that I've seen. That might change. I don't know. He's been shown that he's pretty easily influenced by Trump voters.
Like what happened with the lockdowns here? People yelled loud enough, and
he came out and said, "This is the first time I've heard it was contagious," or whatever the fuck.
And it's just like,
it's like what?
Yeah, no, Kemp is Remember, this is Kemp, the guy who's incredibly prepared, so prepared, in fact, that when snow hits Georgia, he's just like, "Oh God, you're supposed to salt the roads? I had no fucking idea. Weird. Sorry, guys."
To be fair, Georgia's really bad at snow. Under Nathan Deal, we had the two salt trucks that weren't out on the road, and they came out at the same. Atlanta has two salt trucks. Two for the city of Atlanta, which has roughly 5 million people if you get into the greater metro of it. But when you get into like the perimeter area, it's like 1 million to 2 million people, and there's two salt trucks, and they crashed into each other exiting their garages. Which proceeded to develop into the worst traffic jams that Atlanta's ever had. Apparently, a baby was born on 285 as a result of this.
Can't they just use Coke trucks? Different salt. Oh, you're meaning.
Does it snow in Georgia? It snows once every 2 years for 3 days or something like that. Like Georgia is weird when it comes to snow, and it only snows north of the Piedmont, really. And if it snows in South Georgia, everybody runs for cover.
Yeah, the bread and the milk go away, despite the fact that the bread and the milk would be the first things to fucking spoil. I'm gonna say this right now for all the people who live in Georgia who have the catastrophic, oh my God, we have to go buy the bread and milk thing.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who grew up in Florida, who lived through Hurricane Ivan, who has gone through more than just that. I mean, just recently here with fucking Zeta, where our power got knocked out for several days. I will say this right now. Your bread, your milk, it is worthless. Get canned goods. Those are always on the shelves. Get them. If you're trying to prepare for a rainy day, if the rain knocks out your power, your milk is spoiled. Stop. Please. You fucking idiots.
Might have to swim into your basement to get them.
I'm lactose intolerant. I want my fucking milk, and you fucking idiots keep ruining it. Okay, anyway, here we go. There's mine. I'm gonna eat my bread milk sandwich.
That's funny. God damn it.
Are you broken now?
I'm broken.
You're broken.
At
least your house broken.
I think. Pretty sure.
It depends on how much you've had to drink that day.
That's fair. So, look, I mean, I'm interested in seeing what is actually going to happen, because the certification of the election of Georgia is going to happen on Friday, I think. And
it was supposed to happen
it doesn't
today.
Look like there's the Secretary of State has announced that there doesn't seem to have been any widespread fraud. The recount doesn't seem to be affecting the outcome. And the certification is on schedule, barring some surprise thing that comes up in the next 24 hours or so.
Surprise.
So it seems like Georgia's going to be blue, which means, Cyrus, I'm gonna send you a link.
Oh no.
That I want you to put on screen. It's a Twitter video,
I'd really
so you can
prefer you send me like a Zelda or a Ganondorf. Link's probably the most boring part of the whole franchise. Where are you sending this through?
Where do you want it?
Discord, probably.
Here you go. Don't watch it first. Just put it on the screen.
Okay, give me just a second.
It's got some Korean pop.
It's got some K-pop.
K-pop.
I know this video. I know this video. Okay, guys, don't worry.
It's time to be toxic, guys.
We're in for some fun real quick. Just here, let's.
You make me feel special.
Fucking crocodile.
Right.
I'm gonna get a copyright strike. I know it. It's a blue. is a blue Georgia, everyone. Georgia be blue now.
It's a Blorgia.
Blorgia. Hashtag Blorgia. Bruh, it's an alligator.
Blorgia. Yep.
It's Blorgia. Blorgia's the way we go. But, so voter suppression, voter fraud, votes have been found. To tie everything together real quick, we're coming up on an hour. Let's go ahead and tie things together. So,
this thing with Lindsey Graham and our Secretary of State is going to be interesting because he's flat out declaring war on everybody.
Yeah.
He's talking shit on the president. He's talking shit on Lindsey Graham. Like so when I was making the point about how many people have gone after the Secretary of State, that's the reason why he's revealing things that were said in private meetings. He's like, if y'all are just going to like fire cannons at me, I'm going to start firing back. And not only is he making a stand on a free and fair election, he's standing for himself too, which I fucking respect. Right. Go ahead.
So, have thousands of votes been found in Georgia? Yes. Is that voter fraud in and of itself? No. Is voter fraud a thing that is happening? Yes? Question mark?
If you believe the Secretary of State of Georgia talking about Lindsey Graham,
you don't have to. Trump's already said it.
Oh, well, there you go.
You don't have to believe that specifically because Trump advocated for this publicly himself. So, is that happening? The only way to argue that it's not happening, ignoring the Lindsey Graham bit, if you want to, which I'm willing to do because I'm willing to just cut the chaff out. The only way to argue that it's not happening is to argue that the President of the United States has no impact on any elected official with his words. You have to make the argument.
Clearly that's not the case because you have people calling for the resignation of the Secretary of State on the basis of what Trump said.
Correct.
On his Twitter.
You'd have to make an argument that the President of the United States' words carry no weight at all. And if you live in that kind of diluted reality, I have a few young Earth creationists to introduce you to, and some flat earthers as well. So, is there, however, evidence of attempted suppression as well? Well, yeah, that's every year. There's always that, especially here in Georgia. But the fact is, if somebody tries to hit you with the point, well, if they get rid of the signature things, that would equally affect Democrats and Republicans. No, the fuck it wouldn't. The signatures matter most for mail-in ballots, because that's when you do your signatures. Because if you do it on the machines, you don't really do a signature so much as you just walk up.
You do a signature, because you sign those documents before you actually go in and vote. But the whole thing with that is that on the day when you're doing your vote, right, in Georgia, you're bringing a photo ID with you because Georgia has a voter ID law. You have to have a photo ID in order to get access to the ballot in the state of Georgia. Now, there's all kinds of controversy with that, but it remains to be the fact that that's what it is. So that ID gets checked when you're in person. And the only time where you get like a recheck on that is when you have like a provisional ballot situation where you voted in the wrong.
So the voter ID thing is not, the controversy isn't about using your driver's license or your ID as a vote. The voter ID is about having to register for a voter's identification card. That's the issue. That's because that is voter suppression.
Yes.
But simply using an ID that everybody, generally speaking, has on them from age 18
no.
onward.
Okay. A little bit. I think the ACLU's position on this is that you shouldn't need a photo ID in order to vote, period. You should be able to just walk up as your person and vote. Now, Georgia has a different attitude about that. Georgia is like, we need to verify who you are. And have a system in place and all that kind of stuff. And that is the voter ID law here. You need to have a photo ID in order to vote. It is a staunchly Republican position. It is a position that is won out in the state of Georgia. Not all states have it, but here it is required for you to have a photo identification in order to vote. And if you don't have a driver's license, you can apply for a government issued photo ID that just has your name and signature and face on it. That is, here's your identification. Now you can go vote.
And as it's been pointed out by Locke, an expired license, a passport, or even a school ID from that state all work and function
Correct.
as your ID for voting. I personally don't have an issue with that system because those are things that everybody can, for the most part, access decently, easily, and legally. My issue is when a state tries to say you need to have a
But that's
voter
usually
ID.
a straw man. Nobody's doing that. It's whenever there's voter ID laws in place, a driver's license works. And that's the most common form of photo identification that people carry around with them. But it is technically voter suppression. That, beside the point, it is the reality in the state of Georgia that it is required that you have a photo ID in order to vote. And in point of fact, when you're voting in person, you're bringing your photo ID with you, and that gets validated on the day. In mail-in ballots, you're putting a signature on, and I'm not sure how ID gets verified, but there is a database that gets compared to so that they make sure that your photo ID is connected to your vote. There, I think that you put in your driver's license number or something like that. on
No.
the ballot.
What you do is you.
Did you do a mail-in vote?
No, I
Oh,
went.
okay. No,
I
that's
went
right.
in
No,
I went in
I talked to you
person.
about voting.
What they do is they have a tablet. Everybody has a tablet. Like a lot of people there who are set to this have a tablet. There's a person at the door, and you hand him your ID. He flips your ID around. There's a barcode on the back, and the tablet scans the barcode on the back of your ID. And then it says, okay, you're good. And then when you get inside, before you can get your card that logs you into the voter machine, you hand your ID to another person who checks to see if the data that was checked from the first guy is
Right.
still correct. And once you do that...
So it's hard to invalidate that.
Yes, it's very hard
point.
to invalidate that because you've had a double check on a photo ID of yourself, and then you get a physical card, and you go to the machine, you put that card in the machine, and
And it
that
reads the
card...
chip, and you start voting, and then
Yeah.
a paper ballot comes out, and then
you hand the
Right.
paper ballot to or you go to a representative sitting next to a machine that looks like a trash can, and you feed the paper ballot through that machine, and then it says, okay, you're good, or it says, no, you're not good, go try again. And if it says,
So-
okay, you're good, you're good.
Real quick, Chad is talking about what the issues are with the photo ID, and people in the chat are rightly pointing out that if you have to pay for a photo ID, it is functionally a poll tax. That's the issue.
Yeah, and I can agree with that 100%.
Yeah,
I think photo IDs should be free.
right.
We
So-
are that I can agree with. So I guess my position is voter ID laws are fine if they are using IDs that everybody ubiquitously has and also ubiquitously has access to.
Right.
If that
and
access
there
is
is a
behind a
photo
paywall.
ID that you can get in Georgia. I'm not sure if it's free, but there are some hoops you have to jump through for it, and that's part of the suppression issue.
If somebody
is
has
that
to,
you have to jump through the hoops in
if
order to
somebody
get it.
has to jump through hoops to vote, but they're working 3 jobs, how much time do
Right.
they have to deal with that kind of bullshit?
Exactly. Like in order to get a photo ID just so they can fucking vote. You know, and that's where, you know, there's issues, but you know, there's essentially a life tax in the state of Georgia that it's hard to function in this state without a vehicle. So most people have a driver's license, but
Everything is so fucking spread out here.
right.
That if you don't have, like, if I just want to go to the store, and technically,
But that being said, there's places where you know you don't need to do that.
there are
There's
places.
a lot of small towns that people can walk.
When I was living in Cartersville, it was decently easy to function without a vehicle. Now that I'm where I am, it's a lot harder because in Cartersville, a neighborhood is just a couple of streets next to a shopping plaza.
Right.
All of them are like that. Where I live, it takes me an hour and a half of walking to get out of the neighborhood and get to where businesses are. So, a lot harder for me here. And right now, because my life is a comedy of errors, my vehicle is now yelling at me, telling me that it has an oil pressure issue. which means that even though I did my oil change recently, that doesn't matter. The mechanism that pumps the oil through my machine is not actually working, so my engine might explode.
Wait, you have a busted fuel pump?
That might be what it is. I don't know. I have to take some time to take it to a Volkswagen dealership
Or
so
oil
that they can
pump, I
look
see.
at it and figure out what the fuck's going on with it. But because my life is a comedy of errors, if the house isn't breaking, the car is breaking, and if the car isn't breaking, the house is breaking, and if both of them are breaking, welcome to my life.
I had a scare with my vehicle about I believe it was the oil pump, where it might have been that my vehicle was affected by a manufacturing error.
That's what mine seems to be as well.
And they jumped the gun on the recall and issued me a recall letter, and then they issued me another letter saying that the recall, as far as my particular vehicle was concerned, was didn't apply. I'm like, I don't know if I feel better or worse about that.
My thing is apparently, so I have my thing is that I have a Volkswagen Passat, and apparently the oil pump in Passats from the 2002 models onward, there's like it's a manufacturing error that's normal, not like recall worthy, but it's one of those things that like every forum that I've been reading,
it breaks down after a while and you have to replace it. Yeah,
every forum I've been reading on it has said that,
$200 or something like that. Sometimes
about 400.
Yeah.
So because it's a Volkswagen, parts cost more because they are foreign parts.
Is it one of those where you have to like take out everything in order to replace it? Yeah, that's the way it is in my vehicle too. You have to put it on those stilts and then pull out the bottom of the vehicle and then change the oil pump.
Yeah,
and it's not an easy thing to do at all.
the big where you just go, well, I'm just going to pay somebody else to do it because I don't have the time.
Right, you don't have the possibility. Like even if you had the time, you
don't have the tools. You don't have the you don't have the stuff to do it.
Your truck, and because I have a truck, it's like you would lift it up.
So it comes down to the Passat has this as a standard problem. So once the house is repaired, the next step is going to be
the car.
Not repairing the car, replacing the car.
Oh, I see.
Getting like a Toyota or something that has just such a minuscule repair cost over its lifetime. I think it's like over a 17-year span, Passats generally cost around, or Volkswagens generally cost around $12,000 to repair and maintain. Toyotas generally cost around $5,500, is what I was seeing.
Maybe you should make a prayer and ritual to Poseidon.
Ocean.
Sorry.
I
deeply apologize.
I'm gonna poison your next meal. So now, the research that I found basically said, if you're poor, don't own a Volkswagen or a BMW. Own like a Toyota, because they just don't fucking die.
That's what I got. I roll around in a 4Runner.
So that's what I'm gonna be.
Which I've modded the fuck out of. I sit there and just change my car constantly.
So that's going to be the thing that I do going forward, is just grabbing something that is not going to cost me so much to do, and it's why we're getting a professional to do the fucking house, so that the house will cost less to repair going forward. All that fun stuff. Anyway, we have gotten very far off topic now.
No, we wound up going into this direction about living in Georgia with a car.
We drove,
but I think that we've largely covered like the thing. Georgia's going blue, in all likelihood, barring
whether Republicans like it or not.
Right. If somebody comes running out of like Chatham County or something like that and saying, I have evidence of fraud forever. But with an audit, a full audit of the votes in Georgia, as well as a recount of all the votes for the presidential election, an audit and a recount. We did two processes. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of voter fraud in Georgia. Those 16 electoral votes are going to Biden.
Yep.
For the first time, Georgia will be voting for a Democratic president since Clinton in, I think, 92. Which is huge.
Yay! So, do we have any closing thoughts we want to give to anybody who is watching as we go? Is that a thing we want to do?
I don't know if that's a thing that we want to or need to do. I'm like, congrats, Georgia.
Yeah.
We can watch that Georgia video over and over again. I'm gonna retweet it. But yeah, I don't know.
There are two super chats. I wanna
Someone
read
saying
real
party
quick.
at Waffle House.
I would love to do a party at Waffle House. That'd be great. The first one is from Witch.
COVID.
Kuntz refused to comment on CNN about Graham contacting the states due to Kuntz heading the Senate Ethics Committee. Wonder if there's a thing there. Could be. We will see going forward. And then from D, another $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Sirs, I'm originally from New York, and I'm glad to be down here in Georgia with you. Most importantly, I'm glad to be here during the bluification of Georgia.
So the thing with Graham, that's something to watch the news for the next like 2 or 3 weeks or so, because like, you know, that's oh boy,
Yeah.
oh boy. Because I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but the fact that the Georgia Secretary of State said that is going to be a plague on Graham
Yeah.
for the next year. at least.
He's gonna be the guy for the next couple of years whose Secretary of State said, dude, you're kind of a shit.
Oh, it's Graham's not from Georgia though, or Graham's South Carolina. This is the reason why it's weird, is that Graham wound up getting on the phone with election officials for about 3 states to talk about the election process in the recount process, basically in those states.
Here's how we turn them red.
Right. That's the weird thing. And to the point where Graham was asked about it, and he said that he talked to somebody who then denied that they talked to Graham, and then he said, "Well, I don't remember who I talked to." Okay, but
Shouldn't he have like a fucking ledger?
whatever. So, but he talked to the Secretary of State of Georgia. The Secretary of State of Georgia says this conversation went this way. Graham says, no, it didn't. And there's a witness of the conversation that says, I see how they both walked away with a different image of the conversation, but it was a little weird. And why is the senator of South Carolina calling the Secretary of State of Georgia to talk about the election process and a free and fair election?
Yeah,
Why is he doing
it seems
that?
like
What's going on there?
shouldn't all of the individual states' rights people be looking at this with a giant question mark?
Right. Why is the senator of South fucking Carolina trying to stick his nose in a Georgia election?
Yup.
What is happening?
So with that said, if anything new happens on this front, we will probably take another look at it on a future Hammered Out. If there's a substantial amount to talk to, if it's just that like Lindsey Graham ended up having a deer shit in his front lawn, probably not going to talk about that very much. That
No,
would be
we'll
funny.
do a 2-hour show on it.
It'd be the social implications on a deer shitting in your front lawn.
We'll call it Oh Dear. And we'll talk about the doe that exchanged hands.
Has anybody ever talked about
That-
how useful mints are as an appetite suppressant?
Are you hungry, sir? Do we need to go?
It's not that I'm hungry; it's that I'm trying to keep myself from feeling hungry until my next meal because I'm calorie counting.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, no, I realize that because of the amount of energy that I'm needing to do shit, it's better for me to do calorie counting because with that I can actually log in exercise time when I'm like cleaning or chopping down a fucking tree, and then actually budget having enough calories in the day to take care of the things I need to do.
Right.
Which seems, as much as keto would have been the real easy way of shedding pounds, this seems to be probably the more healthy way of going forward, given that every now and again, some fucking catastrophe happens, and I have to deal with it. So,
Also, for you guys that are not in the state of Georgia, they want to keep up with this, because I assume that people in the state of Georgia are aware of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but if you do want to keep up with it and find news that is specifically relating to the Georgia election as it develops, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is doing a pretty good job covering it. It's the main newspaper in Georgia.
your local papers are always really good for stuff like this.
Yeah. So if you want to follow that, that's where you're going to get like
Yeah.
constant updates on it. So
with that said, everybody, it is Wednesday. Not Tuesday nor Thursday, but
it is Woden's Day.
we still have hammers.
We still have hammers. All right. So It's good seeing y'all, and I guess subscribe to both of our channels.
Go sub to fucking Ocean. It's in the description, you lazy assholes.
Yeah.
I will be
Wait.
starting another stream here in about 10 or so minutes because
Cool.
I actually completely forgot that I am scheduled to be on another person's channel 30 minutes ago.
Oh shit.
I am a dummy. So I'm going to be...
We scheduled this yesterday.
Yes. So I'm going to be starting another stream here in about 5 or 10 minutes. Enough time for me to go refill my drink, let Growlithe in, all that fun stuff.
Gotcha.
And we'll be starting up there. Hopefully you guys are ready to deal with some really cringy Sonic the Hedgehog related shit. That's basically what's going to be going on.
And thanks for hanging out with us all.
Thank you all for hopping out, and welcome to the end screen.